The convoy came to a calculated stop outside Jacob Holdings Tower, Victoria Island. Four black SUVs aligned with surgical precision. Security tightened. Interns stood in pressed suits, holding iPads like shields, their eyes darting between clocks and curbs. Then something broke the rhythm. A woman, thin, fast, and unmistakably out of place, rushed past two startled guards. Her brown gown flapped like a flag in distress. Her wig sat askew, her face flushed with heat or maybe purpose. A battered handbag bounced against her side as she charged through the human corridor toward the one man no one dared approach uninvited. Jacob Anderson. She grabbed his hand. The world stopped breathing. Gasps rose like a glitch in reality. One guard lunged instinctively. Another moved to intercept. Back, Jerry said. Jacob's head of security didn't need to shout. His hand rose a wall. His stance said enough. Don't. The guards froze. Jerry's eyes flicked to his boss. Jacob gave a minimal nod. The kind only people trained to notice would catch. Jerry understood. He stepped forward, placing himself between the guards and the woman. No one touches her, Jerry said, voice calm but final. Everyone stared. Staff, drivers, even the receptionist who'd survived 3 restructurings. The fountain at the entrance seemed to hush. The woman's grip on Jacob's wrist was trembling, but her voice wasn't. I can help you win the $100 million contract. Jacob didn't blink. The noise of Legos dulled around them. The contract, the one governments whispered about, the one Sterling Dynamics had likely bribed half the committee for, hung between them like a spell. What did you say? He asked. I can help you win. Tonight. Silence again. A guard shifted. Jerry's hand moved slightly. One more step, he said, and you're off my team. Stillness returned. Jacob studied the woman. Her eyes were steady, not desperate, just sure. He thought of late nights at the office. The pressure, the risk of being the youngest bidder with the boldest plan. He thought of that one small sneaker left by the door 2 years ago, the one that never got picked up again. Then he said it. Come with me. The world snapped again. Dozens of jaws slackened in unison. Jerry turned, cleared a path, and the guards parted like a sea. She walked beside Jacob, still holding his sleeve. Inside, the lobby was glass and gold. Polished marble underfoot. The scent of citrus and power. Gold letters read, Jacob Holdings. Building tomorrow. Her worn slippers whispered across the floor as they entered the private elevator. Jerry joined them. Pressed 10. The doors shut. Jacob turned to her. What's your name? She looked at Jerry, weighing him, then looked back. Before I tell you, I need 2 minutes alone with you. Lock the door. Jerry's jaw flexed. It's fine, Jacob said. Do it. Jerry nodded once and stepped out. The door clicked shut. The room was silent. High above the city, the skyline glittered beyond floor-to-ceiling glass. The office was built for power, calm, ordered, exact. She dropped her handbag. Then, without fanfare, she began to unbutton her gown. The brown fabric fell away, revealing a fitted black sheath dress. Elegant, minimal, immaculate. She set the gown on a chair, then removed the crooked wig. Underneath, sleek natural hair, carefully styled. She straightened her back. The woman who'd walked in from the street was gone. In her place stood Monica Williams. Jacob froze. It wasn't just the name. It was the gravity that came with it. Monica Williams, CEO of Apex Treasury Group. The elusive gatekeeper behind half the city's development funds. A name whispered in boardrooms, followed by silence and speculation. I needed to see your instincts, she said. How your people treat strangers. How you treat uncertainty. He stared. You disguised yourself to test me? To test your company. And your character. Jacob didn't know whether to be impressed or offended. And what if I'd failed the test? You didn't. He exhaled slowly. Why me? Because your plan is good, she said. Because this city needs risk-takers who still have a conscience. And because when a woman grabbed your hand, you didn't flinch. You signaled to protect. Jacob said nothing. And what do you want in return? He asked finally. One revision to your bid, she said. You open your supply chain to local vendors in Ajaganlay and Yaba. Small ones. Transparent timelines. Public reporting. And if I agree, I'll stand for you tonight. And you'll win. He looked at her again, not as a surprise guest, not as a streetwalker in disguise, but as a peer. He nodded once. Done. There was a knock. Jerry's voice, Sir, we've got problems. Reporters downstairs. The board just walked in. And Andrew Cole is here. Jacob's jaw tightened. Of course he is. Do we open? Jerry asked. Jacob glanced at Monica. At the gown on the chair. At the wig that now looked like evidence. Open, he said. The door swung wide. Andrew Cole stepped in first. CFO of Sterling Dynamics. Sharp suit, sharper grin. Behind him, reporters craned their necks. Camera flashes lit the corridor like lightning. Well, Andrew said. Heard a homeless woman touched you this morning. Thought it was a joke. Turns out it was just Monica Williams. Monica stood, unbothered. Arms folded. Andrew's smirk twitched. You're backing him? I am. Andrew faltered for the first time. Then another voice cut in from the back. Well, if it isn't the queen herself. Jacob turned toward the voice and froze. A man stepped from the shadows. Tall, broad, familiar. Michael Adme, his former co-founder. The man who once shared dreams and blueprints, and later sold those same blueprints to the highest bidder. What are you doing here? Jacob asked, voice cold. Helping Sterling win, Michael said, grinning. They needed someone who understands how your mind works. Jacob clenched his jaw. You were always good at betrayal, Monica said. Michael raised an eyebrow. You still dramatic as ever? Then he stepped closer and lowered his voice, just for Jacob. Your son, he whispered, is alive. The air left Jacob's lungs. He stared, wide-eyed. Michael smiled. See you at the bidding. The silence in Jacob's office was deafening. Michael's words hung in the air like smoke from a gunshot. Your son is alive. Jacob stared at him, face unreadable. Somewhere behind his calm exterior, a wall cracked. Liar, Jacob said. But the voice lacked fire. Michael's grin widened. Believe what you like. But Sterling's about to drop that bomb in front of the entire city. Before Jacob could reply, Monica stepped in. Enough, she said, her voice like glass. If you came here to whisper rumors, you've overstayed. Michael's gaze lingered on her. Still playing the savior, Monica? I save what's worth saving, she replied. Michael gave a mock bow. Then I'll see you both at the gala tonight. Should be explosive. He left with the same smugness he'd arrived with. The room remained still. Jacob didn't move. Monica turned to him, her expression gentler now. You okay? Jacob exhaled slowly, as if letting go of 10 years of memory. No. Jerry returned, tension stamped on his face. Sir, board's in the lobby. Reporters are piling up. Andrew's feeding them something. Jacob nodded. Let them in. All of them. Jerry raised an eyebrow. Even the board? Especially the board. A few minutes later, the boardroom was packed. 12 members seated like judges at a trial. At the head, Chairman Al-Yamid, expression unreadable. Jacob, he said, we've heard troubling things. A woman from the street. A media circus. Now whispers about your family. What's going on? Jacob opened his mouth, but Monica stepped forward. My name is Monica Williams, she said. And I'm here because Jacob Anderson is the only man qualified to lead this project. A few board members gasped. Al-Yamid dropped his pen. Monica? One director whispered to another. Apex Treasury. But not everyone looked impressed. From the far end, a voice cut through. Well, if it isn't the prodigal queen. It was Michael. Back again, like mold on expensive wallpaper. He leaned against the window, arms folded, smile smug. Jacob's eyes narrowed. You weren't invited. Michael shrugged. Neither was truth, but here we are. He stepped closer to the table. Let's not pretend, shall we? Jacob Holdings is unstable, emotionally compromised. His leadership is erratic, and now we have video of him holding hands with a beggar on the street. Jacob tensed. Al-Yamid looked up sharply. There's video? Michael nodded. Leaked this morning. Editors did a wonderful job. Makes him look like a man easily manipulated. Jerry's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His face paled. Sir, Jerry said quietly. It's true. They leaked the footage. Reporters are playing it downstairs. With captions. What captions? Jacob asked. Jerry hesitated. They're calling Monica a paid decoy. Say you smuggled her in to influence the vote. The room murmured like a disturbed hive. Al-Yamid banged the table. Is this true? No, Monica said, stepping forward. It's a smear campaign. I came here on my own, and I stand by what I said. Of course you do, Michael sneered. Because this was your plan from the start. Walk in, stage a miracle, control the narrative. But Monica didn't flinch. You want to talk about control? She said. Let's talk about offshore accounts. She pulled out a folder from her bag and placed it on the table with all the delicacy of dropping a grenade. Sterling Dynamics has been funneling funds for years. Shell companies, kickbacks, evidence, signatures. Board members leaned forward. The room flipped. Michael reached for the folder, but Monica was faster. She opened it and fanned out documents like a magician with a dark trick. Apex Treasury doesn't make public endorsements lightly, she said. But we do make them truthfully. The boardroom shifted. Uncertainty became tension. Tension began leaning Jacob's way. Michael scoffed. So what? A few papers and a performance? You think this changes the narrative? Jacob finally spoke. It already has. Olyamide studied the documents. He looked at Monica, then Jacob, then Michael. Then he spoke. Tonight, Monica speaks at the gala. If she proves what she says, the contract goes to Jacob Holdings. If not, I'll step down, Jacob said. From everything. Gasps. A high-stakes gamble on live television. Michael blinked, then smirked. You just signed your own resignation letter. We'll see, Jacob thought. But he didn't say it. Hours later, the Grand Hall of Lagos glittered with chandeliers and money. The Energy Contract Gala was the event of the year. Everyone who was someone wore black ties and sharp smiles. At one end of the hall, Jacob stood beside Monica. Jerry hovered like a loyal shadow. Everywhere he looked, cameras flashed. Whispers followed them like smoke. There she is, the homeless woman. No, that's Monica Williams. Wait, what? The chairman of the bidding committee, Chief Adelka, took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, we finalized the future of Nigeria's energy landscape. Two contenders remain, Jacob Holdings and Sterling Dynamics. Andrew Cole stepped up first. His smile was like a scalpel. Before we begin, he said, a disclosure. Jacob Anderson smuggled a woman into his tower this morning. A woman he claims is Monica Williams. But what if I told you that's not the only lie? Gasps rippled. Andrew continued. Years ago, Jacob's son allegedly died. But recent findings suggest otherwise. That child may still be alive. Hidden. Protected. Bought. The room exploded. Flashes. Reporters. Panic. Jacob stood motionless. Then Monica stepped forward. Enough, she said. The room froze. I am Monica Williams. And I stand by Jacob Anderson. As for his son, Sterling is exploiting grief. That is not business. That is cowardice. She held up a second folder. Jerry had delivered it just in time. These are the original hospital reports, burial documents, police investigations. Signed. Sealed. She placed them on the table like a verdict. Chief Adelka opened them. His brow furrowed. A few moments of tense page-turning. Then a nod. This is legitimate, he said. Andrew sputtered. It proves nothing. Oh, but it does, Monica replied. And since we're exposing secrets. She pulled another sheet from her bag. Sterling's offshore accounts. Names. Transfers. Enough to bankrupt your boardroom dreams. Michael, watching from the crowd, looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Jacob stared at Monica. She had turned the storm around. She wasn't just saving him. She was rewriting the story. But before anyone could celebrate, Michael pushed forward. You think this is over? He hissed. Jacob still doesn't know the full truth. He leaned close, voice low. Your son, he whispered again. He's alive. Jacob's heart stumbled in his chest. This time, he didn't dismiss it. He couldn't. The night was far from over. Jacob didn't sleep that night. He sat in his study, the lights of Lagos twinkling beyond the windows like distant, mocking stars. The city was celebrating his victory. But inside, he felt the grip of something colder. The folder Michael had left, an image of a boy with Daniel's eyes, sat untouched on his desk. He didn't open it. Not yet. He stared at it for hours, fingers tight around his glass. Monica had long since gone to bed, giving him space, trusting he'd come to her when ready. But how does a man look his fiancée in the eye after the past is torn open again? He was still sitting there when Jerry entered, quietly as always. We pulled everything, Jerry said, placing a new file beside the untouched one. Hospital records, death certificate, post-mortem scans. All signed. All real. Unless Michael has something nuclear, they're bluffing. Jacob didn't look up. And if they're not, then we find out what really happened. Jacob finally turned to him. His voice was a whisper. What if my son's alive, Jerry? Jerry didn't blink. Then we bring him home. Silence. Then Jacob stood and picked up the folder. Tell Monica we leave in the morning. By noon, they were on a flight to Greece. Monica sat beside him, her presence steady, grounding. She didn't speak much, didn't need to. Her fingers found his under the blanket as they crossed the Mediterranean. She knew pain. She had lived in it, rebuilt from it. She knew that wounds didn't disappear. They became bones, structure, breath. And she would stand beside him, no matter what ghosts waited at the end of this flight. Athens was gray, the sky hanging low like judgment. A driver met them with no questions. The address Michael had hinted at turned out to be a private clinic hidden in the hills. Expensive, discreet, dangerous in the way only the rich could afford. Inside, the receptionist glanced at Jacob once, nodded, and disappeared. They were shown into a room. Not sterile, not medical. A library, almost. Books, a couch, soft rugs. And then a door opened. The boy who stepped in was 17. Tall, lean, hair dark, eyes familiar. Jacob didn't move. Neither did the boy. Daniel? Jacob asked. His voice cracked like dry paper. The boy tilted his head. They said you might come, he said quietly. Jacob staggered forward. Your name, please. Daniel. Williams. That's what they call me. Jacob collapsed into a chair. The name. Her name. Monica knelt beside him. The boy, Daniel, watched silently. I don't remember much, he said. Only a woman's voice, sometimes. She said I'd been hurt. That my real name was Anderson. But they told me she died. Who told you that? He pointed vaguely. The people here. A man. He said, you didn't want me. That you gave me away. Jacob's chest hollowed. He looked to Monica. She didn't cry, but her face was fierce. We'll need proof, she said. DNA. History. Files. Jerry stepped forward. Already arranged. I had it prepped before we left Nigeria. Jacob barely heard them. He was staring at the boy. His boy. I need to know, Jacob whispered. I need to know it's you. The test results came 2 days later. Positive. 99%. Father and son. Jacob wept. Not loud. Not messy. Just a quiet, breaking thing. Monica held him, forehead to his. And the boy, Daniel, washed with something like fear, something like longing. Then, finally, he stepped forward and placed his hand on Jacob's shoulder. I'm sorry, he said. Jacob shook his head. You have nothing to be sorry for. News of their departure had already caused waves in Lagos. Sterling had leaked the story first. Jacob Holdings CEO flees country amid secret child scandal. Reporters were circling like sharks. But Monica wasn't one to run. The moment they landed back, she scheduled a press conference. On her terms. At Jacob Holdings Tower. This time, she stood with Jacob and Daniel beside her. I present to you, she said, not a scandal, but a miracle. She detailed the truth, the deception, the years of loss, the proof of survival. Then Jacob spoke. I mourn my son. I buried a coffin, and I never imagined this day could come. But he's here, alive, because of one person who never gave up. He looked at Monica. She fought for truth when I didn't have the strength to. Daniel stood still, overwhelmed. The cameras flashed, but he didn't flinch. He was his father's son. Behind closed doors, the board demanded a private explanation. Investors panicked. Journalists tried to dig up every inconsistency in the timeline. Michael Adme, meanwhile, made his final move. He released a video clip, one from years ago, edited to suggest Jacob had known all along, that he'd faked his son's death to protect assets in an offshore trust. It was a lie, cleverly built. But Monica had prepared. She stood again, this time with forensic accountants and cybersecurity experts. She showed the metadata, the editing fingerprints, the payments traced to Sterling's lawyer. Michael was exposed. The final thread unraveled. He was arrested. Andrew Cole resigned. Sterling collapsed. And Jacob, for the first time, breathed without guilt. That night, Jacob stood in the nursery. Daniel had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted. The twins, Johnson and Joshua, slept curled together like commas. Monica leaned in the doorway, arms folded, watching them all. 3 sons, she whispered, and a man who thought he'd die alone. Jacob turned. His voice was low. You gave me back more than my son. She stepped forward, kissed him gently, and whispered, You're not alone anymore. Outside, Lagos glowed. Inside, the lights dimmed. And peace, for the first time, came to stay. The victory had settled like dust. In the immediate aftermath of the gala, Lagos buzzed. Headlines, late-night debates, retweets, outraged columnists, backroom deals. But Jacob and Monica had more pressing battles now. The public moment had passed. The private war remained. Back in Jacob Holdings' headquarters, the boardroom was reassembled. Investors, legal teams, some board members still shaken, others vindicated. Some faces were triumphant. Others, resentful. Chairman Al-Yamid cleared his throat. "We've formally rescinded the challenge. Jacob Holdings is now the owner of the project." His tone was firm but strained. The room exhaled. Relief. Expectation. Monica stood beside Jacob. Her posture was calm but alert. The folder of documents, the irrefutable ones, rested on the table, like a foundation stone. But Michael's shadow refused to fade. One director, a man named Ibuka, spoke. A question. How do we mend investor confidence? The system shook. People doubt. They want stability. Jacob nodded. We rebuild in public. Transparency. Frequent reporting. Oversight. Let the contract become the example, not the exception. Monica added, we'll open a real-time dashboard. Supply chain metrics. Vendor participation, especially from underserved districts. I promised to Jaganlay and Yaba. I intend to keep that promise. The board murmured. Some leanings shifted, some scowled, but no one objected. Meanwhile, outside in the press realm, Sterling Dynamics crumbled. Andrew Cole was trying to salvage his reputation. Michael was fighting legal suits on multiple fronts. Leaked emails, shell company audits, asset freezes. Yet the loudest moment came from the media. A nationwide talk show invited Monica and Jacob together. Cameras, lights. Nigeria watched. The host, cool but probing, asked, "So, Ms. Williams, was your entrance the greatest business stunt ever? And Mr. Anderson, did you know your son was alive all along?" Monica leaned forward. I walked in rags because I wanted to understand your reactions, to know the values of a man. As for decisions years ago, you are free to believe that I engineered everything. But you now have the documents, the chain of custody, the truth. Jacob's voice was low, steady. I did not know. I grieved. I blamed myself. But when proof came, I pursued it. If that's a crime, I plead guilty. The hosts and audience blotted at the sincerity. Something shifted. Interviews followed. Social media trended hashtag truth wins, hashtag Jacob and Monica, hashtag from ashes. Trust, fragile, delicate, began to regenerate. But not all scars heal cleanly. At night, Jacob often stayed at his desk. In the stillness he heard echoes, baby shoes, laughter that died. He watched Daniel, now living with them, sleeping in a room filled with new toys, yet still fragile in memory. One evening, Daniel came to him. "Dad," he said softly, standing in the doorway. Jacob motioned him in. "I'm sorry," the boy said, voice unsteady. Jacob knelt before him. "You owe me nothing," he said. "You owe me truth, and I will carry it with you." Daniel's brow furrowed. "I don't remember much. I feel stolen." Jacob's throat tightened. He held his son's shoulders. "We'll rebuild. Together." Monica watched from the hall, silent but in tears. Then came the legal aftermath. Sterling's board was indicted. Executives resigned. Assets frozen. Michael's trial became a spectacle. Prosecution teams used Monica's documents as exhibits. Corruption networks unveiled. Shell companies, bribes, offshore accounts, false audits. Jacob Holdings emerged not just victorious in contract, but as a symbol of accountability. To validate that, they launched a foundation, the Anderson Williams Legacy. Schools, hospitals, support for orphans, something from their own pain turned outward. The public loved it. Academics cited it. Governments invited them. The brand, once just business, became moral. Months later, a gala celebrated the first year of the energy project. The lights over Lagos reflected on the water, proud. Johnson and Joshua scampered in tuxedos. Daniel walked beside Jacob and Monica, now older, quieter, more present. On stage, Jacob stood. Monica at his side. The crowd was packed. Journalists, dignitaries, citizens. He spoke. "We took a contract, one many believed we didn't deserve. But we didn't win it by hiding. We won it by showing who we truly are. A man is not defined by the cards he's dealt, nor by the wounds he carries. He is defined by what he builds. Tonight, We build trust, transparency, legacy. Monica stepped forward after him. They say power corrupts, but I say power reveals. It reveals who you are when no one watches. We have no masks left. When applause roared, Jacob caught Monica's hand. Their eyes met. They'd survived betrayal, grief, lies. Now they stood not as victims, not as conquerors, but as partners in truth. In the crowd, Michael's face appeared on screens via live feed, trial cameras. He glared, his empire fractured. But Jacob, looking over his family, over the skyline, saw something new, a future. Light spilled through the tall windows of the Anderson-Williams mansion the morning after the gala. The city's hum was softer now, less urgency, more expectation. Jacob stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the skyline shift in dawn's pale light. Beside him, Monica moved silently, her steps calm, familiar. They had come far. But endings are rarely clean. Scars persist. Tomorrow waits. 1. Reckoning in public. Within days, every official gazette published the committee's decision, the supporting evidence, and the story of Daniel's return. Newspapers ran the headline, "Miracle or Justice?" The Anderson-Williams reclaimed legacy. Pundits debated. Opponents fumed. Rivals investigated. But the voices that mattered were those softened by understanding, by astonishment, by empathy. Michael Adme was brought before a court. The prosecution presented a dossier built by Monica's investigators, shell companies tied to Sterling, edited videos traced to his legal team, bank accounts exiled to tax havens, communications showing he financed a media smear campaign. Witnesses testified. The defense sputtered. The world watched. At trial, when the judge pronounced Michael guilty on multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, corruption, and defamation, Jacob felt a cold catharsis. He stood behind the glass walls of the courtroom. No entourage, no swagger, just a man whose life had already been dismantled and rebuilt. Outside, reporters pressed microphones. Cameras flashed. But Jacob's gaze found only Monica and Daniel, arms entwined. Michael's empire crumbled. Andrew Cole resigned under public pressure. Sterling Dynamics entered bankruptcy proceedings. Along with the verdict came the unraveling of everything he had built on lies. 2. Reclaiming home. Back behind the walls of their home, though, life had to breathe again. They spent the first weeks restoring Daniel's memories, letting conversations creep in. Not about lawsuits, not about pleadings, but about small things, favorite foods, songs, childhood stories he barely recalled. One afternoon, Monica found Daniel standing in the garden, watching Johnson and Joshua chase butterflies. "You like it here?" she asked softly. He nodded. "It's ours now. This is family." She slipped her hand into his. The word felt new on his tongue. Later, in the nursery, once the twins' domain, they set up a corner for Daniel. Photos, puzzles, books. Nothing like a museum, too sterile, but things that felt like possibilities. At night, Jacob would sit with him on the balcony, looking at stars. "Dad," Daniel said one evening, voice hesitant, "do you remember anything before?" Jacob inhaled. Fragments. Smells. A lullaby. A woman's laugh. He held Daniel's hand. "But all I need now is the life we build forward, together." 3. Beyond Business, the Legacy Foundation. Jacob and Monica formally launched the Anderson-Williams Legacy Foundation. In a large gathering filled with dignitaries, activists, citizens, and media, they unveiled its mission: uplift widows, orphans, victims of accidents, negligence, all the lives pushed aside by chance. They revealed projects: medical clinics in underserved districts, vocational training centers in Ajaganlay and Yaba, fulfillment of the clause Monica had insisted on. Transparency, public auditing, community oversight. Monica stood at the podium. Her voice was quiet but clear. Truth, power, wealth. None of them mean anything if they're used to hide the weak. We will measure success in lives changed, not in credits earned. Volunteers applauded. Some cried. The foundation's symbol, a phoenix rising from twin wings, projected behind her. In subsequent months, the foundation grew. Schools opened. Rural clinics offered services. Street rehabilitation programs helped those cast aside. The poorest vendors, once unable to access Jacob's supply chain, now had registered paths, microloans, transparent procurement. The media shifted. They no longer saw Jacob and Monica as scandal survivors. They saw them as architects of a new public ethic. 4. Internal echoes. But wealth and influence don't silence doubt. One evening, Jacob found Monica staring at a blank page in her journal. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She didn't turn at once. Finally, she spoke. "Even now, I wonder if I gave up too much. If the mask I dropped was just another mask. If scars will always follow us." Jacob came to her side and touched her shoulder. "I chose you. Not for the fight. For what comes after. The quiet moments. The rebuilding." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I never believed I could love again." She paused. "I'm beginning to now." In that silence, they often spoke without words. The wounds of their pasts, the husband and daughter Monica lost, the wife and son Jacob buried, still whispered. But now they walked together with those whispers, not under their weight. 5. Public life, private heart. The twins, Johnson and Joshua, grew in laughter and wonder. They often tugged their parents toward the garden, to draw, to run, to just exist. Daniel learned to call them brothers, hesitant at first, then with pride. One Sunday afternoon, the family visited the graves of their lost loved ones, the cold marble stones in a private cemetery. Monica led Daniel to her daughter's stone. He touched the inscription. In quiet voices they spoke. "Because of you, we chose to live again." Then Jacob guided him to his wife and son's stone. Daniel placed a small flower. The wind stirred. The bones of memory were heavy, but now shared. On the drive home, they sat in soft silence. Johnson chattered about school. Joshua hummed a tune. Daniel, perched between parents, leaned his head against the window. Monica turned to Jacob. "We did it." Jacob squeezed her hand. "We're doing it." 6. Legacy beyond. Years passed. Jacob Holdings expanded, but not in secrecy. Every project bore the signature of accountability. Annual transparency reports, public town halls, vendor reviews posted online. Where once contracts flew behind closed doors, now procurement audits, independent watchdogs, community committees. Monica merged Apex Treasury into the new structure, her influence woven into the new ethic, not dominating, but guiding. She spoke at universities. She published essays on leadership and grief. She spoke of scars as maps, not curses. Jacob funded schools, clinics, innovation hubs. He returned to tech, energy, infrastructure, but always with a lens of social impact. In boardrooms, he refused deals that demanded opacity. He turned down offers that asked him to trade hidden favors. Some opportunities slid away, but the ones that remained were ones worth keeping. 7. The final moment. On their 10th wedding anniversary, the city held a gala by the water, banquet tables adorned with soft lights. The twins played in safety. Daniel walked in with his father. Monica entered in a dress like calm dawn. In front of hundreds she spoke. 10 years ago, I walked in disguised. I tested fear, values, character. What I found was a man who had already buried love, but never canceled faith. That test endured. Tonight, we renew not vows, but purpose. Jacob stepped forward. He pulled a small box from his jacket. "Monica Williams, my partner, my truth. Will you marry me again?" His voice cracked with more reverence than surprise. Tears spilled. She nodded. He slipped the ring onto her finger. They embraced. Cameras flashed. The crowd rose. But standing on that stage, Jacob felt no burden, only belonging. He stepped back, looked to the skyline, then at his family. For the first time, his empire felt gentle. Not fragile, not frantic, integrated with legacy, truth, and love. He whispered to himself, "We rise from ashes." And Lagos watched.